Welcome back to another episode of the Nothing to Do podcast. I am your host, Jeremy. I am back, and I am back at such a good time, at least with regards to pop culture, the timing of it in terms of what's going on in my life. I feel like I can breathe a little bit about some certain things, and I'll touch on it a little bit later, just to keep you guys updated. But boy, oh boy, I come to you recording this morning, Sunday, Cinco de Mayo, after the Bruins almost blew a 3-1 lead in the series, but came back and won in overtime to win their series, as Canelo Alvarez pieces the fuck out of Jaime Munguia last night, which we also saw coming, respect to Jaime Munguia, but come on now, it's Canelo. As the Timberwolves not only sweep the Phoenix Suns, but take game one in the series versus the Nuggets, in which I have finally started my road to destruction in that of sports gambling. I put my first bets out this week on some NBA series. I was 0 for 4, trying to hit these parlays that I thought would be good in my head, but didn't. Maybe I'll talk about it later. However, the Wolves got me my first dub on the sports book last night, as they were a slight underdog, and I put my money on them, and they took the dub. But most importantly, I come at what seems to be what is a now finished rap beef, one of the greatest, if not the greatest rap beefs of all time. As tempting it is to say that, it's tough because I didn't live through Biggie and Tupac, and I was still too young to understand Nas and Jay-Z when that was relevant at the time in the early 2000s. But boy, oh boy, Kendrick Lamar versus Drizzy Drake, Champagne Papi, the boy, versus, I'll give, Kendrick Lamar, a.k.a. Kung Fu Kenny King Kunta. Fucking Beverly Hillbilly. Yeah? Now, this beef has had me in a chokehold, right? The way that this has played out in the last, I want to say two months now, because that record dropped halfway through March, so it's almost been 2 months, and I'm going to walk through this beef. I've been having conversations with friends, my friends across, different walks of life, different cultures that they come from, and I had some friends say, they're not really following it too heavily, which is understandable. But some of them that are following it more than others, saying that Kendrick is absolutely losing this beef. That the tracks that he dropped, not including yesterday's victory lap in Not Like Us, saying that Kendrick is washed and all this stuff, and I don't know where he's coming from. If he's listening, my only explanation is that he's not a hip hop head in that sense in terms of bars. I'm not trying to. Honestly, if anything, this is the opposite. Like, I'm not trying to discredit his taste in music. If anything, a lot of my taste in music outside of rap comes from him. I love his taste in music, but I don't think he listens to hip-hop like true hip-hop rap fans listen to hip-hop for bars. I think he listens to the music first and not the not the bars and sort of, the more nuanced stuff that may go over casual fans' heads when it comes to, rap and hip hop, which is cool. But if for some reason maybe you don't understand the beef on the level that these TikTokers are going crazy over, this is why I'm here, speaking to my friends who are, casual fans at best. This was a clinic performed by King Kunta, Kendrick Lamar, the good kid in a mad city, Kung Fu Kenny, in how and how you absolutely dissect it. And this is not to say, honestly, I really liked the Drake tracks. I thought Family Matters was pretty solid, but I'll also go into my criticism on that a little bit later. And I thought Drake did all he could do with what he had and what he's known for, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough against Kendrick Lamar. Now, this beef started in the middle of March. I don't know the exact date, when Metro Boomin and Future dropped that joint album, that collab album, We Don't Trust You. And Kendrick Lamar had a surprise feature on that, in which he took shots at Drake, he took shots at J. Cole, and the usual, just shots against the industry in general. When Kendrick is heating up for an album, which apparently is supposed to drop very soon, and his first album outside of the TDE label, which is like sort of relevant moving forward, like into this beef. He he takes shots, not like huge shots at people other than Drake, but he just takes shots at the industry, and is like, he's there to remind people that he's king at what he does, which is great, right? This sparked a hip hop rap civil war feud of the century, because there's so much stuff even just going around it that is related and even unrelated to this Kendrick Lamar and this Kendrick Lamar Drake beef, right? I think the first thing that came out after like that track, right? He takes shots at Drake, he takes shots at J. Cole, and J. Cole a couple weeks later drops a tape, right? Not his real album, a tape, Might Delete Later, which I enjoyed. I don't think it's his best work. I think it was a lot of throwaways. There's really only, I want to say, 3 songs that I really enjoy, and then everything else is okay, but I can do without. And then he had this 7-minute drill. And for those of you who listened to that shitty episode I put out like 2 weeks ago that I recorded on my AirPods, I'll touch on that stuff, but it was basically just damning J. Cole. And I'm gonna tell you right now, any and all slander that I had for J. Cole, who is one of my favorite artists of this generation that I grew up listening to, I take it all back. It makes sense. He made a sound fucking decision, because he obviously knew or had some sort of inkling that this is a lot deeper than just who is the best rapper, and that this isn't a friendly fade, so to speak, and that these two motherfuckers really do not like each other. Drake and Kendrick do not like each other. There is beef brewing. There is beef that has been brewing with these two for 10 years now, since Kendrick's verse on Big Sean's song Control, where he literally just took shots at the industry, and Drake didn't take a liking to it, and Kendrick essentially doubled down on those sentiments, especially specifically towards Drake, in a BET cypher at the BET Awards. I don't know if it was in that same year, but shortly after. And ever since, it has been a cold war up until this point. And, like that came out. J. Cole did the 7-minute drill where he took some warning shots. Nothing, I thought, he's going to engage in this beef. He did engage in the beef initially. And it wasn't like a fire diss track by any means. It's exactly what I expected from J. Cole. It was like kind of warning shots. But not 3 days later, he goes on his Dreamville Fest, and I fucking flamed him for taking back everything he said. He essentially was like, this is not cool. Like, it wasn't sitting right with me. I called Kendrick, and I wanted nothing to do with this. And for all the reasons I outlined in my previous episode, just the competitive nature of hip-hop and rapping, and him, on this run that he's been on, J. Cole, just talking about how nobody can compete with him right now. And then here's his chance to compete and really go in battle with somebody, he backs out. And initially it just felt like a Punk move. And it was really disappointing as a J. Cole fan. But now that this Kendrick and Drake beef seems finished for the most part, um, like it makes so much sense. And J. Cole is in. There's bad memes saying that he's out there in New York City riding his bike somewhere while these two fucking people rip each other apart. And shortly after that, Push Ups comes out. That's the first Drake diss track. Hot song, warning shots, a lot of stuff poking fun at Kendrick's height. And obviously the money, the deal that he had with TDE, the splits and the money that he had to kick up to the higher ups, and just jabs, just a lot of jabs. The song was hot, jabs were on point, and then obviously, to Drake's credit, it is corny that this is happening now. I'll dive into this a little bit later too in terms of my thoughts on why he's getting jumped by all the big artists in the rap game right now and R&B. That's The Weeknd, it's Metro, it's Future, it's A$AP Rocky, it's Rick Ross. I don't know if did I miss anybody there. Those are the big ones now. Those are, I think that might be all of them. But Metro and Kendrick recruited all of those people that I just said, including Kendrick, and they all had verses or hooks on one of those songs in the Part 1 and Part 2 album of the We Don't Trust You by Metro and Future, right? And they took turns taking shots at Drake. Rick Ross doubled down. He made his own diss track before right after Push Ups came out. Literally right after, and it was before it even came out on DSPs. It was when he just leaked it to streamers like DJ Academics and like Kai Cenat, and literally took shot Rick Ross, and he had a solid diss track. If y'all heard it, calling him white boy, talking about his nose job, all this shit, fake abs. And then not a week, I don't think it was even a week later after Push Ups dropped, where Drake dropped the Tailor Made freestyle on his Instagram, where I love the move. I love the track. I love the idea and the concept behind it. He leveraging AI, using Tupac's voice and then Snoop's voice, to sort of it was almost like an 8 Mile moment, where he was trying to take the wind out of what he think Kendrick would diss him about, whether, especially with regards to the underage girl shit, which becomes a major fucking theme in this beef moving forward. Right? And then, still after all this time, it's just silence from Kendrick. A week goes by after Push Ups, nothing. Another week goes by, nothing. Everybody's rushing this man, Kendrick. Everybody's on Drake's back. It's like, why is he taking so long? Part of that tailor-made, part of the main idea of tailor-made, why he dropped it was like, why you taking so long? Like, I'm here. Like, he was trying to put the pressure on Kendrick. All right, cool. I trusted Kendrick was going to come out. And I will say this now, actually. I'll say this now. I was rooting for Kendrick. I'm a fan of both. I'm a fan of Kendrick more as an artist. But I wanted to see Kendrick win this, and I'll explain why a little bit later. And nothing comes out. I don't know if it was just a gift from the gods. For me personally, it was like my own little pre-graduation gift. The minute that I submit my last assignment due for the master programs that I'm about to complete, now minutes later, Josh texts me. Shout out Josh, the in-law. Former guest of the show as well. I had a great episode. I think that was two. Anyways, I digress. Kendrick just dropped. And he drops Euphoria. Euphoria! That 2 minutes, it was like after I get this weight lifted off my shoulder, I get this gift from the universe. Like, hell yeah. Let's fucking go. We get a 6-minute diss track, 6.5 minute diss track from Kendrick Lamar. Um, Starts off very slow at first, very slow. Um, for like the first minute and a half, and then the beat turns up. Total of three beat switches. He talks about the fake abs. He tries to take his N-word past. What else did he alludes to some of the underage stuff, but it was one of, he said what would be many things that he will spare him on right now. That right now this is a friendly fade, quote unquote. But if you take it there, he says, quote unquote, don't tell no lies about me, and I won't tell truths about you. And then he proceeds to whoop this motherfucker. Whoop this nigga, man. And in terms of push-ups versus Euphoria, I'm taking Euphoria. Clear winner is Euphoria. Makes fun of the Toronto accent in a hilarious way. Compares him to Sexy Red. And calls him a hoe. And was like, you don't like women. You be popping ass with him. What else does he say? Just a lot of shit. A lot of metaphors in there. Little subliminal lines that he again alludes to. It was like, I'm not gonna dive deep into this right now, but don't push me there because I have the clip, right? That track drops, sends DJ Academics in a little bit of a tizzy. Honestly, throughout, I've never been a fan of DJ Academics like that, and I only really watch like clips that go viral on like TikTok or Reels. Same with Joe Budden. I used to be a huge fan of the Joe Budden podcast way back when. And then it kind of fell off for me. I've had my criticisms about that podcast and like Joe Budden as a host and just like the image that he puts out there and like the things that he gets into with his co-host and his former friends and all that stuff. That is not the most agreeable to me. But he does have a great podcast. I can't front. And he's always like he's always had talks about what's going on in the music industry, specifically the rap and R&B industry, and they have really good and interesting takes on it. And Joe, for whatever anyone may think about him, he's a great podcaster. He's really good with his words. He's really like captivating with the points that he makes. And I'm sort of kind of coming back around to the podcast, but it's just like, I have been fiending. I've just been like waiting for Joe Budden to drop. I want to see, I want to hear the opinions about the beef on the show. Same with Academics. Although I haven't been watching his streams, I've just been watching like the 15 to 20 minute clips of his reactions to the diss tracks. Like I'm very much. This is like my Love Island. This is like my Keeping Up with the Kardashians, reality TV, whatever you want to call it. Love on the Spectrum. This is that for me. Like this is how I am so excited. Like. I wouldn't be surprised if I've given my girl the ick at this point with how fucking much I have been following this beef and just like constantly bringing it up and stuff. Like, and so where was I? He dropped Euphoria. DJ Academics, he hits up DJ Academics, and word on the street is that Drake is already ready. That if motherfuckers thought that was fire, like you have no idea what was coming, and. In that same week, so that was last Tuesday. It was last Tuesday, or was it the Tuesday? Yeah, it was the Tuesday that just passed. So yeah, it was like the 30th or the 29th of April where Kendrick dropped that. Sent the los redes sociales, sent social media in a tizzy, But we knew Kendrick was gonna, Drake. He had something loaded. Everybody was saying, oh, he's dropping the next day. Euphoria. A day goes by, 2 days goes by, 3 days goes by. Friday comes, still nothing from Drake. But in an unexpected move, Kendrick, essentially, what we now know seems to just be a prelude to one of the most scathing diss tracks I've ever heard in my life. Literally felt like I was listening to Dance with the Devil, like by fucking Immortal Technique back when I was in like 7th grade. Like the first time you heard, we all know when you first started getting into hip hop or rap. I don't even know if that song really goes around like that. Like as a kid, now like when you're in middle school, like getting into rap just because there's so much out there. But like that was like a that was like I don't know if coming of age is the right term here, but like that's like a moment. That's like a moment in every like middle schooler hip hop fans memory. Like the first time you heard Dance with the like that's what this felt like. Dance with the Devil by Immortal Technique. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go look it up. Listen to the song. You'll know what I mean. Kendrick drops 616 in LA. Already the title again, like Euphoria, you know, play on a lot of things, timestamp tracks that Drake is famous for. Um, a lot of things, but if Father's Day, yeah, I don't even know how I missed that. Euphoria talks about Drake just being a bad dad. That's Father's Day in Canada. It's Tupac's birthday. There's some deeper stuff which I talked about this with Josh in terms of how fans get carried away with the double, triple, quadruple entendres in certain lyrics and certain bars, and how it's just like fans be reaching like that's not what the artist meant. And I agree with that to a certain extent, but however, like I think with art, with any type of art, whether it's TV shows, films, paintings, music, it's like what makes art, like what makes good dope art is the fact that you can take so much meaning, whether it's what it means to you or what it could mean in the greater scheme of what's going on around it and what it is representing, whether the artist had that intention or not. The fact that as fans, as consumers, you can draw like very good parallels with good evidence backing up whatever claim you make about what something may mean in a specific piece of art. Like that's what makes good art. I think with music, I don't think that hits as hard for like a book or a TV show or a movie. But I think it's still valid as a way of analyzing music, and especially like specifically rap. But the just the title alone of that, right? It's a 3-minute track. In the first minute and a half of that track, he's not really dissing Drake. He's just like talking about like like I'm a fucking like I'm a peaceful man, but I will fucking go to war. Like he's just kind of talking about himself and kind of building it up. And then the thing with Euphoria was, and now I'm trying to like give you like a brief timeline of how this beef progresses. And then I'm gonna try and like dive into certain stuff that caught my attention and that like later on. But now I'm probably gonna be jumping back and forth just because there's just so much shit going on and so much shit going on in my head that this is how it's gonna happen now. Euphoria. The thing with the Euphoria track, it was really fun. It was funny. Like he took some. It was like a powerful jab, right? But he didn't go deep into anything. It was like a mile wide and an inch deep. And then throughout moments of that track, he's just like, I'll spare you this time. I'm not going to go into that. I won't take it there if you won't take it there. But I know things. And so he's just kind of spread. He's kind of just setting the table. There's this. There's this. He takes one of those things from Euphoria, and now he drills into it a little bit more. One of those things being he exposes the fact that Drake, no one in his entourage likes him. People in his close inner circle of OVO don't like him. There are certain people literally leaking information, wanting him to see him lose his beef. Right? Crazy. That's the tone of that track. Right? Now it was Friday morning. So now, boom, Kendrick goes back to back. And I was like, all right, now Drake got to drop. Like, all right, like we were expecting, the next thing we were expecting was from Drake, and now it's Kendrick. Later that evening, I get a text from Josh. Drake just dropped Family Matters. He dropped some music video and everything for it. And I like this. That track is hot. It's a hot track. It's a hot song, especially that second. He also has 3 beat switches in that one. I think that one's like 7 minutes total. That second beat, that drill shit, hard as fuck. That was the hardest verse in that in that diss song, which is dope. And also part of the reason why it's like I feel like Drake has lost his losing at this point. Still, I think compared to Euphoria, like it's up there as a diss track, but he's still fucking addressing other rappers at this point. Kendrick dropped twice. He dropped Euphoria. He has given you 9 solid minutes about you. You addressed the 1v20 shit going on in push-ups, which you needed to, and it was good. Now you got to move away from that. Now's the time for that. You need to dedicate, however long you dedicate your time to Kendrick and only Kendrick right now. Right? And he doesn't. And the hottest, and unfortunately, the hottest part of that song, that whole second verse, he has nothing for Kendrick. He mentions one thing about, his album's not hitting hard, like sales wise, and how he popped in the video, which was kind of tough. He had the van from Good Kid, Mad City from the album cover, and he was towing it around Toronto, like he had it in a tow truck. It was fire, right? But his hardest verse in Family Matters was dedicated to like Rick Ross and The Weeknd. The shit he said about The Weeknd, the bar he had for The Weeknd was fire. He called him a drugged out punk sissy from the North Side. Like, it was kind of crazy. And then like in terms of like damning stuff about Drake, he claims that allegedly that one of his kids is not even his kids, is his general manager Dave Free's kid. And that he beats his wife, which is pretty damning. Lies or not, that's the shit that you bring to a hip hop beef. And the track was hot, but again, at this point, right, we have on Kendrick's, and we have the Like That verse, we have Euphoria, we have 616 in LA. For Kendrick, we have Push Ups. That's 3 songs for Kendrick. For Drake, we have Push Ups, we have the Tailor Made freestyle, and we have Family Matters. Kendrick at this point with I'll say that the verse I Like That is around a minute. We'll just give it a minute. It might be less, but I think it's like a minute. We have Euphoria, which is 6.5 minutes. So we're looking at 7.5 minutes. We have, and then we have 616, which is like 3.5 minutes. But really only like a minute and a half of that is dedicated to Drake. So we'll say that he has 9 minutes already of content total just targeting Mr. Aubrey Graham. And then we have Drake with Push Ups. That song is about 3.5 minutes. I'll really only say about half that song is towards Drake or towards Kendrick, if that. But we'll give him the minute and a half towards Kendrick. We have Tailor Made, which is, I think, it's about 3 minutes as well. I would say 3.5. I forget. It got taken down also, by the way, because I'll talk about that more later. It's 3.5. So right now we have about 5 minutes of this, and then like really only like 3 minutes, like not even. I would say he probably has. He has like 2-3 minutes tops of dissing Kendrick on Family Matters. A lot of it is dedicated to the other beef that's going around. And so now Family Matters comes out, and he's like, okay, like it's getting even again. It's getting close. I'm personally still giving the edge to Kendrick for everything that I just said. But like, he had some good bars. His track was hot, and he exposed some really damning potential tea about Kendrick Lamar. Not 15 minutes after Family Matters comes out, Kendrick drops another 6-minute diss track called Meet the Grams, already playing on the Family Matters title. The album cover, the cover art for 616 in LA just seemed to be an OJ reference, because it was really just all you could see was it was a zoomed in picture of a black glove and you can see there was like a shirt that it was laying on top of a shirt. That's all you could see. The the cover for Meet the Grams is that same picture zoomed out. So we clearly see everything that's going on in there. Apparently, this one confirms the fact that everyone's been saying that there are leaks in the Drake camp. One. Two, the things that are displayed on the in this album cover, this album art, or this track cover, I don't know, the artwork for this is stuff from Drake's dad, I guess, allegedly. I don't know. I think it's Drake's dad's suitcase, and it's like some of Drake's belongings, in which you see a bunch of pills. There's like sleeping pills for insomnia, Ozempic, and it's just some other shit that, funny enough, in the track that dropped not 15 minutes before Meet the Grams on Family Matters, he had a bar about not losing sleep over like this beef, like Cole is. He has a bar about Rick Ross and specifically Ozempic, and Drake has a fucking Ozempic prescription there. So it's just like already, right? And over this Alchemist produced, very dark, eerie, almost horror film like beat. Sounds a lot like what you heard, like again, Dance with the Devil. He writes 6 minutes. 6 minutes, right? 6.5 minutes. A letter to Adonis, a letter to Sandra, his mom, to Dennis, Drake's dad, to another big claim, Drake's daughter, who again he's alleged hiding another child, a daughter this time, and then finally the ending is towards Drake specifically, and he talks about the daughter. He talks about, I'm sorry, Adonis, that you have such a shitty dad. If you need advice on life, you can just listen to this song. You can reach. he could be not the stepdad, but the dad that stepped up, essentially, right? He talks about how shitty of a son Drake's father raised, and he talks about the fact that even before he says that you did a shitty job raising your son, he was like, your son uses you to affirm his own blackness. You should ask him for more money and more money and more money. He owes you so much, right? Tells his Drake's mom, like your son is a psychopath and I don't like him and he's a bad person. And I feel sorry for you that he always puts you in second place and he treats you like shit. Now take a seat, because I'm about to say some fucked up shit about your son right now. And then he proceeds to say, I think people like you should die. You are comparable to Harvey Weinstein. You should be rotting in a cell with Harvey Weinstein. Let me tell you some crazy shit. He alludes to him liking underage girls. He talks about sort of his compound and how people in his circle are pedophiles, have gone to prison for trafficking, sexual trafficking. He's like, and you keep your son around these people like you're a fucking sick person. There's all this crazy fucked up pedophilia, grooming shit going on around you and in your compound, and you're paying these people and keeping them safe. Like really fucking damning stuff. Like terribly damning stuff on what is a scary yet amazing diss track. And he says all of this damning stuff about really potentially like just Diddy level, Epstein level shit. And the only thing that Drake says is that I basically took to a story. He's like, I don't have a daughter. Why don't you bring my daughter to me? I don't know what you're talking about. Which is funny in and of itself. And whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter, right? Because now it's out there. The narrative is out there. We're all talking about it and we're all spinning it. Because there's a lot of claims debunking that, saying that it's a lie, that Drake even had a hand in sending him for fake information. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. Because now it's out there. It's in the ecosystem. It's in the matrix. And we're all feeding towards it. And it feeds into that agenda and into that narrative of him being a deadbeat and just like a piece of shit father. And he's already gone through this once. It's just like it's so much. But that's all the response. And not even and then 12 hours later, 14 hours later, Kendrick, because by that point Kendrick's won. It's over. Kendrick's won. I think that Kendrick has won. And then he drops Not Like Us, produced by DJ Mustard, a club banger, victory lap of a diss track. Again, doubling down on the pedophilia stuff. Talking about some of the, again, some other lines. I think he has a line about Trayvon and George Zimmerman. Drake does. And I think it might have gone over my head. I don't know if I heard it. I'd have to go back and listen to it. But he has a line about that in terms of like, and how he compares it to like what he's gonna do to Kendrick or some shit or his haters. And then he has a line about, you still rapping like you're gonna free the slaves. So he's like using, and this isn't the first time he's done this, where he's using like these racially charged elements, like not to his favor and not to the favor of like the black community. Like it doesn't look good the way you're using this. Like it's like affirming that narrative that like of him, of just the cultural appropriation of his career and how he leans on his whiteness and the nose job, just everything, right? And then Kendrick doubles down on that, and he was like, yo, Future got you into the clubs in Atlanta when you couldn't get in. Quavo tried to give you juice. Lil Baby gave you the lingo. Like, all this shit, all these artists in America, and specifically, like, in Atlanta, like, gave you the juice, and it's not enough. As a matter of fact, he's like, you are not a colleague, you are a colonizer. Like, you are literally a colonizer. Like, and yeah, Kendrick took a victory lap yesterday with Not Like Us. And I don't see this going any. And also alluding to the fact that I still have more. If you want to keep going, I could keep going, but I suggest you stop. And I think I just don't see. I think the fact that Drake couldn't even dedicate like a full like 5, 6, 7 minutes to Kendrick alone shows that he doesn't really have much other stuff to go on. I mean, the only thing is that this is just like a crazy bait and switch, just crazy playing him in, like we saw Kendrick do throughout this whole thing. He literally just walked him down. He walked him down. He told him, he warned him, he Candymaned him. He said his name too many times, and so he brought out the Candyman. He brought out the boogeyman. Kendrick is the Candyman. And I just don't think that he has anything to say to Kendrick that he hasn't said already. And it's crazy because Kendrick took it to a level of where it's like we've always talked about, and I still honestly with the kid stuff no, but with this alleged like pedophilia shit, it could really hurt Drake in the long term. But I did say, like, no matter how this beef plays out, it's not going to really hurt anybody's career in the long term or even that much in the short term, because we're talking about, like, the two biggest, most prolific artists of our generation. But, like, I think the fact that Drake took it to the levels that he took it, like literally just, like, Epstein, Weinstein adjacent, like that's something that Drake, like his PR team is probably like, don't even address. Like he's just like, now he has to really choose his next steps, not even just in the beef, just in general, like to stay relevant. And like it's tough. I did not see this. And now this is where I'm gonna quick disclaimer. This is where I'm going to start kind of sounding like a hater. Like a Drake hater, or just a hater in general. It's interesting because I'm rooting for Kendrick in this beef, right? And I'm a huge fan of Drake's music, and especially with like the last 10 years. Huge fan of Drake's music. It's kind of undeniable, like what he is capable as a as a music like as an artist, musician. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm why are Kendrick's outside of the fact from them being amazing diss tracks and the way he walked them down this beef, the way he executed the moves that he made, how he did it, his timeliness, this scathingness of the last of Meet the Grant, just everything. Like aside from like just the quality of the execution, I'm like, why? Like, is it exciting me so much that Kendrick is destroying this man? Um, and even just to add on, even like even the Rick Ross stuff, I was really enjoying just like that he was going at him. Which I do think, again, I said I'd go back to, I do think it's corny that all these artists are taking this time now to jump on Kendrick's back. To like, because I don't think that this is like made up. This is clearly have been brewing, like in terms of like the industry resentment that is going on for Drake right now. Like, it's clearly been there, but it's just like it is kind of, is punk shit the way that a lot of it is playing out for a lot of artists. And it just seems like very like advantageous now that Kendrick, like, it's like, yeah, like, they're just jumping on Kendrick's back. And it's soft shit. It's pussy shit. I think it's kind of like, it's not, but it's happening though. So you gotta think to yourself why it's happening. I'm thinking to myself, like, why am I rooting for Kendrick so much? Like, why do I want Drake to lose so bad? Where I rooted for him in the Meek Mill thing just because of the way that went down. I will say that I was definitely like, I was on Team Push. I think when that came out, like, we all love Story of Adidon. But it's just like, because I will say that I wasn't always a Drake fan. I didn't like Drake until Nothing Was the Same came out. And that's when I really started becoming a Drake fan. My favorite Drake album is If You're Reading This Is Too Late. Then probably Views, More Life, which is less of an album, more of a playlist. But like, I think those are, just from the top of my head, those are my three favorites. And then the Savage one is 21 Savage album is an honorable mention for that. Same with the one with Future, actually. Fuck. That's like a two-way tie for the honorable mention are those two. And I'm thinking, I'm like, yo, what, like, am I a hater? Like, why am I such a Drake hater? Like, you can't deny his greatness. Like, you can't deny what he's done for the culture and the music that he's made, and like, the moments that he's given us, whether it's like at a party or like if you're feeling heartbroken or whatever it may be. Like, he's really like he's a fucking hit maker. He is a fucking hit maker. But it's like I always thought he was really corny when he first came out, so I didn't like him. And even when I started to like him, like, I was still kind of closeted, like a closeted Drake fan, I'll admit. And then, like, obviously the cultural appropriation part of his career also like doesn't 100% sit right. But I think around the time that like, What a Time came out and Views came out and like If You're Reading This It's Too Late came out, like that's when I started, I started to see it and kind of defend Drake in those lights. Like, yeah, like, he's using these accents and he's hopping on these different sounds and like kind of taking over it. Like, and then the ghostwriter stuff too, like, you find a way to kind of rationalize why it's okay for those things. But like at the end of the day, like he has bared a lot of resentment around the industry and even just like pop culture in general. It's like they think he's corny and that he's fake and like he steals these sounds from these artists, like whether like it's the Afro beats or the Jamaican, the drill music, the UK drill, the reggae type like popcorn shit, like. And he's hopping on it with these accents, and it's just like, it's corny. It's like, it's kind of lame. And then not only like, he's done a lot for some of these artists, like in these genres, like for, like, I'm pretty, like the UK artists, like honestly, Drake, I would say that Drake, he's had a pretty big hand in like kind of that in that and bringing that UK drill rap uh, to like the mainstream more, and like people fucking with artists like Dave and see some fucking damn, I forget his fucking name. The dude he did the on the radar freestyle with, I forget his name. And like Skepta and all those, and then like you know some damn who's the Nigerian artist, Burna Boy, another one, like like with those beats, Thames, another one. Um, and even with like Future, right? He kind of made like he. I wouldn't say he made Future's career. Let me choose my words carefully here, because Future was on a crazy run. With Beast Mode, 56 Nights, and then the Monster and Monster, right? Those are the three big ones. Like those were his big three, and then right after that, Drake kind of like it was honestly that was more like that was more uh that rise honestly was it did it for both of them because it brought Future into the mainstream like big time. Gave him Drake's audience like that doesn't like outside of like hip hop heads, right? But it gave Drake credibility. And this is like now that I'm reflecting on it, I'm starting to understand why these sentiments are going around the industry towards Drake, and why this is probably also why I feel this way is like he does get a lot of validity and like street cred from hanging around these artists, right? And now he's like, he starts rapping about shit that like he's not really about like that in a way. Like his mob tie shit. And even Wayne himself, when he first come up, he told me, he's like, stick to the rapping about the girls and all that shit. Do not get into this street shit because this is not who you are. And I think with all of that, Kendrick embodied this guy. He embodied all those sentiments as one of the biggest rap stars, and just artists, musicians, just like gifted genius mind in general. And he embodied all that. And he's the one, he's been dying. He's been dying on this fucking I hate Drake train for so long now. And he finally, here he comes up. And Drake, he wins these battles and he wins them. And I'm not going to knock him for it because, like, that's what he has. And that's what made him an innovator. And that's what kind of, and even the Pusha T battle, like, people, like, I'll give that one to Pusha T too in terms of a rap battle. But, like, arguments have been made that the W freestyle was a better diss track than Story of Adidon. And sort of the way he pivoted off that was crazy. The way he destroyed Meek Mill was crazy. But that was not, those tactics using the AI, memes, social media, these streamers, making music videos for like just all this auxiliary shit outside of the actual bars, that's only going to get you so much with someone like Kendrick Lamar. And it clearly was not enough. And so here he comes, King Kunta, Kung Fu Kenny, ready to whip some ass. And people doubted him because he was taking so long to drop after Like That and after Push-Ups came out. And then Drake dropped the Taylor Made. And it's like, okay, Kendrick, where you at for real? And then he dropped, let's see, Euphoria, 616, Meet the Grams. He dropped 4 tracks in the span of like 5 days. 3 of those tracks in the span of like 24 hours. Unbelievable. And he did it in a way where it's really going to be hard for someone like Drake to come back from that. Because no matter if everything he said is true or not, like, it's out there and people are talking about it. And there has been a lot of sus behavior up to this point that really feeds into those underage girls / like pedophile narratives. He had the whole thing with Adonis that is feeding into the new daughter narrative. He has all this stuff that I just talked about that feeds into that culture vulture, that whiteness, that like borderline anti-blackness narrative. Like, and he does that, and like Drake has never been vulnerable in his music in that way, at least. He's vulnerable in a lot of other ways in terms of like how the industry and fame changed him. about his love life. Obviously, he's been vulnerable, but like never about like the really personal internal shit. And that's why no matter he has nothing for Kendrick. He has nothing for Kendrick because Kendrick has been an artist that has been so transparent in his music about his life and his shortcomings as a man. And although like even like I'm this is not to say that I brush away the domestic abuse allegations towards Kendrick or that I'm undermining the severity of what that potentially means. Um, but even just the themes that he's rapped about and the themes surrounding Mr. Morale, like obviously he's not gonna go out and admit or say something like that if it is true. But those themes were there. And obviously he's talked about his infidelity and all that stuff and all this, his trauma and his abuse and all that shit and the abuse that went on in his family. But like those themes were there. So it's just like even if it's true, like that's something that Kendrick will still kind of stand on. Like if it really gets exposed and we get real receipts, yes, it'll be damning for Kendrick. Yes, I'll think a little bit differently about it. But even then, like it's like I've said this and I've said this in the past before. I think the one thing that's unforgivable and that you really can't come back from is like pedophilia, like and like underage, like fucking with underage girls. That's one thing you can't. That's like unforgivable. And this is not again to downplay the impact of like domestic abuse, and I don't believe that you should ever hit a woman. But like that's also I think as a society, depending on how people involved in those situations move forward, particularly the abuser, like I think anybody deserves some sort of redemption. And what I'm saying now sounds damning. And if anybody could catch me outside after hearing this and feel some type of way, like I'd love to talk about that. Um, but like I do think that we forget I've talked about this too. Like people try to drag Chris Brown his whole career for all that shit, and and brush a lot of shit under the rug when it comes to that stuff. But like John Lennon was very much like guilty of this too, and people forget, and it's not talked about. And John Lennon is still considered a narrative. And I've heard even people say that like even with R. Kelly, like Kendrick is talking about the pedophilia shit, but that he's also been on record saying that because it was rumored, they were talking about removing R. Kelly's catalog at the height of that documentary and all his shit that was exposed about him, about removing all his music, all his work off of DSPs. And Kendrick said, if you guys do that, then I'm going to remove my shit. But I think that Kendrick with that is not coming as like a R. Kelly stan or anything like that, but he's just sort of calling to light the double standards that that these fucking white people, especially these white execs and just like that white mentality in general has when certain things happen in black and brown and Latino whatever culture, and you juxtapose it to that same stuff happening within the white culture, but we only talk about like it's dismissed on the white side, and it's heavily critiqued and met with punitive action on the black and brown side, right? So I think that's where Kendrick Lamar, when he said those comments, I think that's where he's coming from. And he has a bar about R. Kelly too in Mr. Morale where he says, I wonder if R. Kelly wasn't abused as a child, if essentially saying, is this coming from abuse? Is this just a vicious cycle of abuse? Sort of empathizing with him as a trauma victim, at least. I don't think he's like forgiving him or like, undermining the fucked up shit R. Kelly did, because that motherfucker was fucked up. Let's be real. But yeah, I think it's really interesting. And so it's going back to what I'm saying about like Kendrick or Drake doesn't have any dirt on him because Kendrick one doesn't move in these circles of fame, and Kendrick has been transparent about everything in his work, about who he is as a person and who he's become and who he was, excuse me, and all that stuff. So it's like, so yeah, it's I don't know, it's really it's interesting. Like Kendrick, and now there is a sense of like, and this is me not saying I'm not a Drake fan anymore. I think that's corny. Unless like obviously like it's really confirmed that like he's a fucking pedophile, but like I'm still a fan of his music and all this shit, and but it does feel like it feels like poetic justice. It really feels like poetic justice that Drake is taking his lickings now. Like he has to answer for a lot of things, and Kendrick called him to task on a lot of things and a lot of his behavior that us as a culture have been skeptical and even border, have held that resentment towards Drake about. Kendrick called him to task on all of that, and he did it flawlessly. So that I think that's why I was rooting for Kendrick so much. Because no matter how much of a Drake fan I am or was or whatever you want, like however I am at, in the moment or in the past, like yeah, that's a lot of the stuff is that people don't like him for. I believe is very valid, like very valid. And to the flip side, with that fame comes a lot of haters and stuff like that. So like obviously people are always gonna try to discredit you on some level when you're that big. But like I think everything that people don't like him for is very valid, and it's a little bit more substantial than just being a Drake hater and thinking he's corny. So those are my 2 cents on the beef. And I'm not gonna sit here and dissect bars from my friends who are not following it that much, but he had a lot that alluded to. He had that honestly the very first one of the first bars in Euphoria when he talks about you make music to electrify him, or I make music that electrifies him. You make music that pacifies him, and that went over my head for a while. It took me a while to think about it. And then I was listening to the Joe Budden podcast, and they kept talking about that bar. They didn't break it down. I'm thinking that they were saving it for a Patreon to talk about that bar, but they just kept saying how hard it was and how good of a bar. I'm thinking, and then I'm like, okay. I'm thinking it's talking about pacifying. And so that's the first allusion to like the pedophilia, the liking kids shit, right? You make music to electrify him, or I make music to electrify him. You make music that pacifies him. I can double down on that line, but spare you now. It's random acts of kindness. So like already, bro, like this shit is crazy. Yeah, it was a fantastic beef. A shout out to us as fans as winner of this beef, because no matter who you have in winning this beef, like we just witnessed an electric moment in music, entertainment, hip hop history. J. Cole, shout out to J. Cole for getting the fuck out the way and just seeing what was coming. Because yeah, he was like, I don't harbor this type of energy for anybody, for either of these two people, and this is gonna get nasty. So let me get the fuck out the way. And hindsight is always 2020, because in the moment I did cook J. Cole for doing that and backing out. But it all makes sense now. And it's crazy, there's all this beef towards Drake, and then there's these auxiliary beefs, like Chris Brown and Quavo are going at it right now too. Like there's just a lot going on. I'm not really following that too much outside of what I've heard from other podcasts. What else is going on? Honestly, I really only have energy. I know there's a lot of shit going on. I haven't recorded since I had Jabron here, like in terms of like a real episode. Again, shout out to Jabron. I really had a really good time. We had a really good conversation with him. And I think that was the first time I've actually I've like this not disagree. I've had disagreements obviously when I was doing the show with Michael. We didn't agree on everything in terms of topics we talked about and stuff like that. But like I think this is the first time I had a guest where we talked about something of substance that we did not see eye to eye on. And the way that discourse played out, it was really It was really fun. And I like that a lot. And I hope you guys enjoyed that interview too. And I'd love to have him. I'd love to have him on again. And I'd love to have Ralph on. I love to have him and Ralph on together because they, I known them growing up, but they grew up as like, best friends together. And I think we'd have a really good time. There's a lot of people that I'd love to have on again on this show. And a lot of other creators and people doing really cool stuff here in Rhode Island that I'd love to have on that I haven't had on. And I'm hoping to make strides in that. I always say, I honestly just need to stop. And I think I've said this before. Like I need to just do stuff and stop. I feel like I jinx myself. I don't know if it's some subconscious thing, but when it's a lot of the times, especially with regards to this podcast, like when I say I'm gonna do something, like I don't do it, which is, I don't know why. Like, and I gotta stop. It's like that, like that mal diojo type shit. I don't know what it is. But it's like whenever I just don't talk about what I have planned for the show, it usually gets done. So let me stop talking and start doing. Like I used to say it to hold myself accountable, but I'm starting to learn that is not personally how I hold myself accountable. Yeah. And so I'm hoping, but I am hoping to make strides on stuff like that the best I can because, the hopefully, hoping that this, knock on wood, that this doesn't come back in my face. But a big reason why I took such a big break, and why I went on my social media saying that, we're going dark for a little bit is because I was finishing up my master's program. So it was less the busyness that I had time with and more the or not the busyness that took up the time that I didn't want to record, and more just the things that I was trying to take care of and make sure that I squared away that potentially, well, I don't think I said anything crazily damning in the last 3 years. I have. Well, I don't know if I have. But I was trying to square away some things that I did not want to ruin through this medium. That's all I'll say on it right now because I'm going to drop again. But I've squared away those things. I have finished my master's program. I graduate this coming Thursday from Rick, and I'm ready to start a new chapter in my life, which is really exciting. As well as I'm hoping to really, and I'm hoping that it aligns in a good way with what I would love to continue doing with this show, because I do love doing this show, and there's a lot of people that I want to talk to again and talk to and get to know on this show, and some, do fun stuff with it, and I really have a good time. So, but essentially I have a moment to breathe. I finished my program. I'm squared away come this fall, and I want to have some fun. I want to enjoy myself these summer months to come, before I really start grinding again. So if you're listening and you got this far, thank you so much. Until next time, everyone. Thank you.